Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for joining. Tonight I was in the mood for a white fish. I didn't want salmon, nothing like that. I didn't want other types of seafood, just a white fish. I was thinking cod or sole, but I went to the store and in the meat section I found halibut steaks. So I'm gonna go ahead and do halibut tonight. And with the halibut, I'm going to do rice. So I'll start building my rice. And so to do that, I have 4 cups water. I'm going to add a little bit of onion powder. I'm not going to measure anything, this is all by eye. A touch of marjoram. A couple of bay leaves. A little bit of garlic powder. Just a hint of nutmeg. I'm going to add a little bit of Himalayan black salt. This has a very earthy flavor. It almost has a little bit of an egginess to it. So I'm not going to add a whole lot, just a little bit of that. I'm going to see where that takes me before I add regular salt. Black pepper. White pepper. Cayenne. A dash of lime juice. One little splash of Tabasco. A pinch of ramen seasoning. The ramen seasoning will give it just a little bit of earthiness, the same way that the Himalayan black salt will. A little bit of grated ginger. Onion. I'm going to chop these onions as finely as I can possibly get them. A little brunoise of onion. A clove of garlic. Well, maybe 2 cloves. A little bit of carrot. So now I'm going to stir this around. And add some chicken stock. Again, doing this the fast way. You could make your own chicken stock if you wanted. And I'm waiting to see how much salt to put in until I add all of the chicken stock, because the chicken stock in these is salted. So now that everything is pretty much incorporated, I'm going to give this a quick taste test. The pepper came out nicely. There is an earthiness to that Himalayan salt. Definitely an earthiness to the ramen seasoning. This is just about perfect. I'm going to add a touch more salt. This is just regular salt. It's kosher. I really like that bay leaf coming out in there. Perfect. That'll do it. I'm not going to add anything further. I think that's just right. So now I'm going to put this in the oven. I have the oven preheating to 400 degrees. I'm going to let this come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, I'll put in 2 cups of rice. And I'm a fan of basmati, so that's what I'm going to use. Okay, so while that's in the oven coming to a boil, I am going to toast the basmati just a little bit in a pan. I'm just going to saute it lightly. This will bring out the nuttiness of the rice. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out the 2 cups. I used 4 cups of water, so I'm going to use 2 cups of rice. And I'm going to put this into the pan. I'm not going to really add anything, maybe just a touch of olive oil, and just let the rice develop that very fragrant quality that it has when you put it in a saute pan. So just a touch of olive oil. That was actually too much, but I think that'll be okay. So just a quick swirl. You'll be able to smell the nuttiness come off of basmati. It has a really unique nut flavor when it gets heated like this. Make sure the oil is coating all of the kernels. The stock for the rice is now to a very, very light simmer in the oven. So now that this is toasted, I kind of ride that fine line between it becoming brown and becoming stark white. So I like the kernels to be a little bit stark white. That's when I know that they're toasted well enough without burning. And when I flip this, we're there. And so I'm gonna pull this off. and go ahead and just put it in our stock. We're gonna bake this rice off. I also discovered this little package of peas in my freezer. I'm just gonna toss that in too. I don't know what to do with these. So I'll put that into the rice as well. So now the rice is baking in the oven, and I'm going to go ahead and check that after about a half hour. I'm thinking it might take more like 40 minutes, but let's see what happens after a half hour. Another thing I like to do in rice is add nuts. I really like pine nuts. I like some sort of nut in with my rice. I don't know why that is. I just love the flavor. I love the meatiness of it. There's a texture that's very meaty up against the light, fluffy rice. Maybe it's a texture thing, I don't know. But I'm gonna go ahead and put these in a food processor. And so when that rice comes out of the oven and it's, it's fluffy and everything, I'm gonna add these at the very end, kind of as a topper, and just kind of stir it in. And now there's some other prep that we have to do. I'm gonna chop as finely as I can the shallot, and I'm gonna go ahead and make a Beurre Blanc. And so I'm gonna start with this while we're waiting for the rice to finish up. These will just be really fine pieces. Again, just a teeny brunoise. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the Chardonnay here, and I chose Decoy for this. Decoy is one of my favorites. It's in my opinion, one of the best medium grades you can buy in the store, unless you go to a specialty wine store or something like that. But and this particular version of Decoy has a very, very high citrus note to it. And so I chose it intentionally to go with this dish. Obviously there's citrus in the sauce, there's citrus in the rice. So I wanted to match that. And this is gonna be the base, obviously, of the Beurre Blanc. And I'm gonna reduce the alcohol out of about 1/3 of a cup of this. I think I've said this before, with the wine, you don't want a low grade wine if you're making a sauce. Your sauce will end up tasting low grade, and if you're gonna go to all this effort, just don't do that. And especially, if you're gonna drink any of this with the meal that you're cooking, definitely you want the sauce tasting like what you're drinking. So I'm gonna let this reduce down with the shallots in it. And once the alcohol is cooked out, we're gonna add a few other things like lemon zest, and things like that. So we're adding the white wine. We're adding the shallots. And while that's reducing down, I'm gonna go ahead and zest a little bit of a lemon. I am gonna wash this off first because I'm using the rind part of it, so washing off. And not digging into the pith at all, just really lightly scraping the yellow on the outside, and that's all I'm gonna want right there. It's just a little bit. Also, just a tad of lemon juice I'm gonna add to this once it reduces down. And because I don't want to lose any volume out of this, I want as much volume as possible. I'm gonna check to see if that has been cooked out already. Not quite. Right when it cooks out, I'm gonna start adding the rest of everything so that I have a higher yield of sauce. One more taste test. That should probably do it. And the alcohol is now cooked out. I'm gonna add a little bit of lemon, just squeezing a little bit of lemon into here, making sure that no seeds fall out with it. And I am going to add about a tablespoon of heavy cream. And I'm gonna let that reduce down just a little bit. I don't want this at a heavy boil, so I'm gonna turn this down. And actually turn it off the heat just a little. I'm gonna take it off. Just a little bit of a simmer there, as you can see around the edges. So I haven't added the zest of the lemon yet because I don't want to add it too early. If I add it too early while that's simmering, it will develop a bitter flavor, and that's not what I want, and it will start overtaking the whole thing. It's really just something kind of at the end. Now in the meantime, there is something else we have to do. It is a Beurre Blanc, so we will be adding butter to this. I have pre-softened this little cube. And I'm gonna cut this into little chunks such that we can let that incorporate into the sauce little bits at a time. If you incorporate it too quickly, your sauce will break. And the worst thing you can do is break a sauce, because once you do, you can't get it back. You have to start over. So we're gonna do that in little teeny pieces at a time. Just cubing that up. Actually, in retrospect, I should have used cold butter for that. It would have cut a little better, but you get the idea. I softened it knowing it would melt down quicker, so that's why I did it that way. So now I'm gonna check the sauce, see how far it's reduced, and if it's reduced enough, we'll go ahead and start adding the butter chunks. So what I do here is sort of an on and off method. And what I mean by that is you can see that this is simmering away. I'm taking that off the heat. I'm gonna wait until those bubbles simmer down a little bit and stop doing that. And once it stops, then I'm gonna start adding these butter cubes. If I add it when it's too hot, it will break the sauce. And as I said before, if you break it, you can't get it back. And so I almost use like a remote heat. I hold it above the heat so that it's not right on the flame. I take it off intermittently, just continually swirling the pan until it incorporates. And I'm only doing one cube at a time to make sure that the sauce will be able to hold that butter without breaking. And it held that one really well, so I'm going to add the next one. Again, this is off the flame, as you can see. I'm just kind of letting that melt in. And there's still quite a bit of tang from the wine, obviously the lemon as well. We're gonna buffer that out with a little more butter here. My mom happens to be a butter fanatic, and I feel like I should probably teach her how to make this sauce. Although, if I do, she might be eating it just for dinner with nothing else, so I don't know. A little bit more back on the heat. This is doing a really good job of not breaking. It's incorporating well, it's melting well. And at this point, I'm just going to do a little bit of a taste test. Oh yeah, that's nice. I think I'm going to do one more and I'm done. A little bit of heat. And this is a sauce that you really do want to use as soon as you make it. It's not going to hold well. It's certainly not going to reheat. You're going to lose it from breaking. So that's it right there. Done. And as promised, I will now add the lemon zest. Just like that. And at this point, I am holding this pan over the burner. You can see the flame is not on, but the heat is residual. So I'm just gonna hold it over that. It shouldn't break with that kind of heat dissipating out of there, but just enough to keep it warm while I go back to focusing on the rice and now starting to sear off the fish. So for the halibut, I went ahead and as I said, I went to the meat department in the store and I picked up this nice big steak here. The man at the meat department was really nice. I was being picky about which steak I wanted, and he was patient and he pulled out the one I wanted, and I was very grateful for that. And that's the one I wanted right there. Now what I am gonna do is I'm gonna blot with a paper towel some of the wetness off this halibut. That will make it so that it cooks more evenly. As you can see, there's a thick part here, and then it goes down to thin, so already that's not gonna cook super evenly, right? So I'm gonna do my best to do that from the surface side and just try to make it so that it cooks as evenly as possible. That way we don't have moisture dispersing around the fish. So now it's time to get some olive oil in the pan, and we're gonna go ahead and sear this off. Now normally I would grill fish, but I've been grilling a lot lately and I kind of got tired of the flavor, so I am just gonna pan sear this tonight. And we're gonna put a little bit of olive oil in the pan. I'm going to evenly coat the entire bottom of it and let that heat up. In the meantime, while that's heating up, I'm just going to lightly salt this. I don't want to pepper it. There is actually quite a bit of pepper in the rice and quite a bit of spice. And so the only seasoning I'm going to do on the fish is salt. The salt is not going to permeate the inside of this. It's only going to remain on the outside. So it's not really an issue where you can over salt a steak this thick, whether it's beef or fish or what have you. And there we have it. And into the frying pan it goes. Oh, it's perfect. That was perfect timing. It's nice and fluffy. It's coming right up. Oh my goodness. Perfect. And I'm just going to fluff this up a little bit. And there's that beautiful bay leaf. You can smell the aromatics in the herbs, in the bay. It's really, really delightful. Let me taste test this. I love what the vegetables added to it. The carrot, the peas. The pepper is just right, the salt is just right. All of those deeper elements. The stock, you know, the nutmeg, all of those things that you really can't pinpoint, but you know they're in there, turned out perfect. So now I can't wait for that halibut to be done. Now remember, we ran the pecans through a food processor. So I'm gonna go ahead and, like I said, I'm gonna take that bay leaf out, finally. And I'm going to sprinkle these pecans in here. And I happen to like cheese in my rice as well. And so this is some Jarlsberg. I had shredded this up and saved it and then froze it from the bacon grilled cheese video. And so this was some of the leftover Jarlsberg from that. And I'm just going to fold all of that in. I can smell the pecans coming out of there. Very funny thing is happening. The rice is hot and it smells like the pecans are roasting as I stir this in. I kind of wish you could smell this. This is very, very unique, very good. So now we're going to have a creaminess with the cheese. We're going to have a tartness because of the Jarlsberg. And that's going to complement that little bit of lime in there. And now we're going to give it one last taste test. Oh, those pecans took it to the next level. Excellent. And we take another look at the halibut. This has been flipped over. In the time it took me to test the rice, this was coming along nicely. And as you can see, these are nice and flaky in here. It needs to go just a tad longer on that other side, and it'll be just right. If you remember, I said there was a thinner piece of the halibut, and then there was a thicker piece. And we wanted to be careful how we sauteed that because obviously the thinner piece will cook first. I have now plated up the thin piece of this, and this could not be more perfect. So what I'm gonna do is I've pulled the thicker piece off the heat, and I'm just gonna let it sit there in the pan and carry over. It will carry over and cook that last little bit, and then by the time I eat that, it will be perfect. But for right now, I'm gonna go ahead and attack this little piece here, and then dish up some of this rice. And then I'm just gonna pour my Beurre Blanc over the top. Oh, that looks good. And I'm saving enough for the rest of the halibut. And I did happen to find a little jar of capers in the fridge, so I'll add a couple of these. I think these were from a previous episode. Actually, they were. It was from the, I think it was the smoked salmon cheesecake episode. So this is becoming more like a piccata with the capers in it, but that's okay. And there we have it. So we'll give this a full taste test with all of the flavors combined. A little bit of sauce, a little bit of rice, fish. Oh my goodness. It melts in your mouth. You don't even really have to chew. You just swallow. This is outrageous. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this. And this really is not that labor intensive if anyone wants to make it. It's actually a little bit simple. Just make sure you have a lot of butter on hand, a lot of white wine, and a really nice piece of halibut. Thank you for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.